It is easy to preach, but always difficult to practice what is being preached. It's not about what one did in the past. It's about what is one doing now and into the future. So when I take a topic like how to end suffering, I just want you to know that whatever I'm going to share in this video on this very important topic is what I practice. I will give you the sure shot techniques to end suffering. Follow along with me to understand the concept and get to the end to understand the techniques. Most of the videos that I create on this channel, particularly the ones that do not involve a conversation with another individual, are not just meant to be academic or textbook preaching, but they are learnings from the Gita and Upanishad that I have put in practical use over the last several years and continue to do so. Of course, over time, with increased learning, perspectives continue to evolve and I factor them into my practice. As an example, the conversations I have with others give me different perspectives that I contemplate and I think and I put it into practice. The topic of how to end suffering is such a crucial one, and it impacts a vast majority of us. In fact, you can ask a reverse question. Who doesn't suffer? To get a grasp of suffering and deal with it, we need to understand how suffering happens, and then the techniques would then make better sense. The techniques to end it would make better sense. You see, suffering is an experience of pain and distress. The word experience is of significance because if you do not experience, then there is no suffering at all. For suffering to occur, one must be conscious and aware. Under anesthesia, as an example, you don't feel the pain and the distress of a major surgery because you're not conscious or aware about it. However, when you're fully conscious, even a mosquito bite has an experience of pain and distress within you. We continue to have those experiences of pain and distress repeatedly. And of course, there is also the experience of pleasure and relief. But for some real weird reason, that experiences of pleasure and relief appear to be short-lived. And it is pain and distress that creates an impact that we cannot forget so easily. We seem to be wired to grasp the negative versus the positive. Hence, the Gita and the Upanishads say we are always in a state of samsara, meaning we are wandering through cycles of birth and death with this roller coaster of experiences being a part of our existence. If that is the case, how do you put an end to suffering? Well, let's look at that now in detail. The two components of suffering, and understanding this will help us to understand the techniques better. Suffering actually starts from the inside. But since we are all accustomed to acknowledging suffering to be happening to us versus inside us or within us, it's always somebody else's problem, isn't it? Since we are accustomed to looking at suffering outside of us happening to us, we got to look at this first external impact and understand that. Think about your own life. There's so many external forces that you can attribute as the cause of suffering. A health issue, being denied a promotion, being denied a job even after an amazing interview, getting into an accident due to rashness of another driver, your home getting damaged due to a storm. All these are external forces acting on you, causing suffering. You may also be suffering due to a suffering being caused to somebody close to you, like losing a loved one, or a loved one suffering from a disease or an ailment like cancer. These are all external but yet happening to you. And when we think of suffering, it is this suffering that we commonly recognize. And when it has an impact on us, we call it karma. Now, many go a step further and say none can escape this suffering, as it is a debt we owe in this current life, and so on. No one is spared of these experiences. Doesn't matter who you are, each one of us must go through these causes of suffering. But wait a second, then there is a suffering which is within us. This is completely internal. As I said, the external cause of suffering has no impact on you unless you acknowledge and suffer within. Take that example I gave you earlier of being under anesthesia. An individual under anesthesia has no suffering due to any of the external causes. Things may be really bad out there, but the individual has no awareness or consciousness about it, hence does not suffer. Which is why the Gita and Upanishads conclude suffering happens only when there is an internal acknowledgement. And how you deal with this internal acknowledgement defines the spectrum or the force of suffering. If you react emotionally and abruptly or instinctively, then there is a higher chance of that internal suffering. Whereas if you respond inquisitively and logically, then you lower the chances of that internal suffering. There are techniques to put an end to both these components, the external component and the internal component. You actually put an end to suffering by managing them. The better you become at managing, then you diminish the impact. And you will reach a point where you end suffering completely. Now, you can never eliminate the external component of suffering fully, as no one is spared of the external component because it's beyond your control. But for sure, you can take care of managing the suffering within you, and through that is how you completely end suffering and stop suffering. This repeated aspect of managing is called abhyasa or repetitive practice. To manage and lessen the impact of the external component of suffering, there are two ways to do it, or two techniques you can adopt. In the real world, the first and common way individuals use to lessen the impact is a very obvious one. It is through money. Using money as a way to manage, we tend to lessen the impact. And it is effective to a certain extent. Getting the best treatment, the most comfortable couch, a comfortable car, a big and spacious house are all things individuals do to reduce the impact of external aspects of suffering. Money in that regard really helps you and is a very effective way. There's a reason why we work hard and save. There's a reason why we pay hefty insurance premiums for healthcare so that we can get the best. And there's a reason why we save for retirement, because we want to be comfortable. We do all of these things and start accumulating money so that we have enough of it to minimize pain and distress. Now, who defines enough is again an individual aspect. And if you don't have contentment with that enough, then you would never come out of that external aspect of suffering. Which is precisely why they say money cannot buy everything. So even with the best care or enough money or comforts, you may still suffer. This is where the second technique of managing the external component of suffering comes in handy. And in my view, it's an absolute must to reduce the impact to the bare minimum. The Gita and Upanishads have this answer. They have this technique. And they prescribe us to be in a satsang. Sat meaning purity and sang meaning being in the company of like-minded, pious, good and compassionate individuals. It is a satsang that truly softens the blow of this external component of suffering. A satsang helps you through suffering without expectation. It provides social support, provides moral support, and in many cases, the individuals within the satsang raise up to provide you physical, financial, and operational support. You go to temples to be in a satsang, otherwise there's no need at all. You have God everywhere, including your puja room, then why go to a temple? That's because a place like a temple can be a powerful platform to develop a satsang and be part of that community. Now, your role when you are part of a satsang is to focus on service and giving. It is through this service that you lessen the impact of the external component of suffering and help alleviate suffering for others as well. The Gita refers to the 3 Ds, Daya, Dana and Dhamma: compassionate, charitable and self-restraint. The Gita says, be part of a satsang, be compassionate, be charitable and be self-restraining. Each morning you wake up saying, Lord, put me to good use today for the help of the satsang. Constant abhyasa of this helps you manage the external aspect of suffering and reduce it to a bare minimum. Now let us move to the internal aspect, or as I indicated earlier, the real suffering. Without your awareness of internal suffering, there is no suffering at all. This is where again the wisdom of the scriptures come to help us. To manage this internal aspect of suffering and through that completely end suffering, we do it through 3 ways. Number 1, you move to a mode of responsibility and duty in every action of life. Moving to a mode of responsibility and duty in every action of life. Thinking about, I am responsible for maintaining a healthy body and hence I will exercise. And if I am impacted by an illness, the body is no different than a car that requires maintenance and repair. So it is changing that mindset to be of responsibility and duty. It's like saying I'm responsible to train my mind to respond and not react, hence I will be thoughtful in my answer. It is saying it is my duty to take care of my family and loved ones and hence I will do so responsibility. Number 2, not letting selfish love overshadow responsibility and duty. Arjuna in the Gita is a classic example. He let selfish love overshadow his own responsibility and duty. And similarly, his opponent let fatherly love turn a blind eye to a deceitful son, resulting in a heinous war. Number 3, moving away from fear to faith. This can only happen if you start inquiring and move away from blind beliefs. Faith also shows when you develop a respect for what you have, even if it is minimal, and having a respect to everything around you. The satsang I described earlier to manage the external component of suffering provides you a platform that you get started on, that to get started and start developing this internal management of suffering and mature on the above 3 ways that I described. It is only through this management of internal suffering that you put an end to suffering. The right type of satsang helps you develop spiritually develop a discipline that you extend from your personal to professional life as well. Use the 3 ways of managing internal suffering and the 2 ways of managing external suffering that I described above. Get into a satsang immediately. Pour water on the fire of suffering and get into the mode of being peaceful. And that is the only way, while being still on the roller coaster of samsara, you will enjoy the ride. Because there's no way you can get out of the roller coaster, but you absolutely can enjoy the ride, and you enjoy the ride by completely putting an end to suffering, following the techniques I've described above. Hope this helps. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay healthy, stay blessed.